Heidi ho, it is you. How about that?
Hey, how's it
Heidi
going,
ho,
dude?
it is you. How about that? Oh, I am doing just swell. To what do I owe the pleasure?
Apparently you're pro-Palestine. Someone told me you think Israel's committing a genocide, and people from my chat said it'd be good to debate you on the topic.
Uh, why? Just out of curiosity, I have no objections. I'd want to prepare a little bit, but why now and why? Period.
Well, my chat just suggested.
Okay. Is that a typical vegan thing? Is defending the massacre of tens of thousands of civilians?
Well, if it's not a massacre of civilians and it's a legitimate military operation, then yeah.
Not a massacre of civilians. What percentage of the dead do you think are civilians?
Think Israel is estimating there are 16 to 18,000 Hamas casualties, with the remaining 40,000 ish, deaths being from civilians. So it'd be somewhere between 22 24,000.
Uh-huh. That seems high. Seems like a lot of civilians to militants.
No, not for
No,
urban warfare.
not for urban warfare. Okay. Um,
So when you calculate the total number of civilians in the area
okay.
versus the total
Yeah.
number of militants, and you
Hmm.
do a militant to civilian casualty ratio, the
Um,
ratio doesn't approach anywhere near what could be considered targeting of civilians or indiscriminate bombing.
I mean, have you seen the images of Gaza? There's 2 million people right now who are without food and dying.
There
They've
are
just
not 2
they've
million people
because
who are
you're
without food because Israel's facilitating aid. So no, there's not 2 million people without food.
Israeli minister said it may be moral to starve 2 million. Last month,
Okay,
6th.
that's great. They're not starving.
Okay. Why would you say that?
A, well, what? There's only been somewhere in the 40s for total starvation deaths since the beginning of the war. And if you actually
How have you?
calculate,
Okay, hang on, slow down, slow down. Since the beginning of the war, first of all, I'm not entirely certain how one could possibly establish this. My understanding is they haven't even figured out how many bodies are under the rubble. But let's run with that. The nature of starvation is it typically starts to happen when everybody's homeless and out of food. So what's happening right now is they have very, very little food to feed the population. The population is going to get sicker and sicker and sicker, hungrier and hungrier and hungrier. You're going to see these deaths over a period of time, and you're going to see a whole host of complications in the people who are not killed. And once again, you have 2 million people who have been displaced from their homes with no safe water or even water at all in some cases. I'm just confused as to what the point of this is. Like, is it to establish that technically the numbers don't lie, ergo vis-a-vis concordantly, it's okay, guys. Technically, Israel didn't commit a genocide TM when they displaced 2 million people and killed half of a hundred
what do
thousand
you mean by
civilians.
displaced 2 million people?
I mean, they blew up their homes and they don't have any homes to go to.
So about 50% of structures within Gaza are standing and are
Really,
structurally
fifty
sound.
percent of 50% of structures in one of the densest civilian centers in the world is still fantastic.
And by the way, again,
Hmm.
Israel is facilitating humanitarian aid and they're bringing in things like tents, temporary shelters.
Okay.
So
Great. Are
it's
they
kind of a,
bringing in enough? Are they intimating in various public places that actually they have intentions to remove those people, that they may be moral, for example, to starve them anyway? It's completely apropos of nothing, just as a little intellectual exercise,
I don't really
right?
care what any one particular Israeli politician has said. What I care
I am
about is
just I
whether or
am
not
just
there's.
perplexed though as to why this would be a thing anyone in a position of power in Israel would feel the impetus to say. This is the finance minister. It's not somebody. It's not nobody, right?
Okay, well, I'm pretty sure the finance minister doesn't really have much to do with the facilitation of
You don't
humanitarian
think
aid.
that? I mean, I'm actually in the dark about this, but when I think finance minister, I think someone who's probably well networked in with the economics of the Israeli government. I would imagine he would, at the very least, his words would carry some weight on something pertaining to the distribution of aid for a population of millions of people.
What was the exact quote from the finance minister?
Quote, it may be just and moral to starve 2 million Gaza residents until Israeli hostages are returned, but no one in the world would let us.
Okay.
You know,
And when did he make that claim?
that would have been last month.
Okay.
Or not last month, it's October now, isn't it? That would have been in August.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's enough for
Nothing-
you
nothing
to
has to do with
confirm
whether or
that
not it's
there's mass starvation? A quote from a finance minister.
Nope. I've been reading stuff on and off for the last little while, not prepping for a debate, talking about the integrated food security phase classification. Famine is imminent. Guardian. Israel condemned for saying starvation of millions might be justified and moral. I need to not look up starving because it's switching to that quote. Food situation in Gaza. Let's see if that turns up anything. According to Norwegian Refugee Council, data analysis by organizations working in Gaza has found that as a consequence of the Israeli government's obstruction of aid, 83% of required food aid does not make it into Gaza from 34% in 2023. This means people in Gaza have gone from having an average of 2 meals a day to having just 1 meal every other day. An estimated 50,000 children aged between 6 to 59 months urgently require treatment for malnutrition by the end of the year.
Okay, that's quite a claim because it was calculated pre-war that the average Gazan civilian was getting 2,800 calories per day, or there was enough food coming in to reach 2,800 calories per day.
Pre-war?
Pre-war.
Okay, so that's pre-war.
Right, that's pre-war.
Right.
And there should be enough
Guardian,
food
1 in 5
trucks
households
coming
in Gaza go whole days without food, draft UN report says.
Okay, and
Maybe they're
I'd
lying,
have
I don't
to-
know. Take it up with the UN.
yeah, because the UN doesn't lie. But there the daily
IDF never lies?
average.
What's the
daily working average for food trucks coming in is
Okay.
nearly 200.
Wow.
I'm pretty
200
sure.
200 food trucks. What's the capacity of those? Just out of curiosity.
I'm not sure, but I remember it being calculated that it's close to the food that was coming into Gaza, human food, not including like pet food. And it's reaching nearly as much as what was coming in pre-war.
Okay, so why is everybody saying that whole families are going days without food? 1 in 5 households in Gaza go whole days without food.
What's the quote?
1 in 5 households in Gaza go whole days without food. Draft UN report says.
Okay, I'd have to look at that.
3 months ago.
Okay, well, I'd have to look at that report.
I'm just a little bit.
and
It's
how they
strange to be so
calculated.
passionate about this topic. If I'm not following this with a laser focus. I find it incredibly depressing. But it's just strange that you would be soliciting debates on this topic specifically when you're not aware of, like, for example, UN reports on the subject. It seems to me to be one of the.
So you realize, even if that figure were
on your
true,
floor, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah, even if 1 out of 5 families are, I don't know, starving or something,
Yeah.
that doesn't actually mean aid isn't being facilitated. It could be that aid is having trouble getting to certain areas in Gaza. We also know for a fact that Hamas is commandeering these food trucks, and they're stealing the food and trying to make money by selling it. So that's not necessarily Israel's fault. That's Hamas's fault.
So the food trucks aren't making it out of Gaza then, no?
What do you mean out of?
Well, I mean, if they're commandeering food trucks, do we have like specific reports on how many of these food trucks are being commandeered by Hamas? Or by
Well, just
commandeered, do you
because
mean
they're
they're just
being
being
commandeered, that doesn't mean they're not being returned. They're just stealing the food.
okay? Well, commandeer typically means you take over the vehicle itself. What you mean is they are taking the contents and selling off the food, right?
Let's see. New IPC projections have been released. I placed the prior projection side by side with current one to see the difference, notable changes. While the report notes there is still a risk of famine across Gaza Strip, all projections of famine with, let me see, projected food insecurity. Famine is projected to unfold.
Apparently, the U.S. Agency for International Development has determined that Israel broke the law vis-a-vis obstructing humanitarian aid to Gaza.
I don't know what that means exactly. If they're obstructing, so if they're obstructing humanitarian aid, like to what degree? Like blocking one food truck for security reasons.
Here we go.
Thousands.
New York Times: Israeli minister will release Palestinian funds if settlements are legalized. Under a tentative deal, Israel's finance minister Bezalel Smotrich would help the Palestinian Authority stave off financial collapse at 5 illegal West Bank. This is not Gaza. This is the West Bank, but that's also bad. But another territory that's being illegally seized as we speak, by the by.
Just a second. I'm reading the IPC report.
The IPC report, can you share it with me?
Yeah, sure.
All right. What is this? Oh, Avi Bitterman. Of course. Okay. So I'm not even talking to you, am I? I can't even see this. He's blocked me. Yeah, we're not even having a conversation. You're just talking with Avi, and he's just shooting you stuff. Okay. You didn't come in here with anything in particular to talk about. You just wanted to do a thing, right?
No, my chat recommended that I debate with you.
The chat recommended you debate. Yeah. Why? Why?
Well, because they want to
Call
see
yourself
me
a
debate
vegan, you son of a
pro-Palestinians.
bitch. Like you're like, why? You're called vegan gains. You care about people eating beef jerky, but you're fine with thousands of kids being killed because, technically,
Can you name any war
Jesus,
where
man.
kids weren't
Pathetic.
killed?
Nope. But I wouldn't typically endorse any sort of military action that results in the virtually total razing of one of the densest civilian centers on Earth.
So you're against the Allied involvement in World War II?
Am I against the Allied involvement in World War II?
Yep. About 500,000 German civilians died during World War II. So are you against the Allied involvement in World War II? Should the U.S. not have fought? Should the UK?
Let's play this out for a second. So my military history isn't great, but let's think this through. Was the bombing of Dresden absolutely required for the defeat of the Nazi war machine?
Sorry, say that again?
Was the bombing of Dresden absolutely required in the manner in which it was conducted to defeat the Nazi war machine and to beat Hitler so he couldn't kill a bunch of people? Was that absolutely required?
Well, it's not necessarily absolutely required, but it would be argued that it.
What I'm getting at is was the decision was the decision
war, which would have saved more people.
Well, that's my question though. Did it actually end the war faster, or was it, for example, potentially punitive in nature? I am actually in the dark about this.
Well, it wasn't punitive in nature. The reason they struck Dresden was because it was a massive area in which supplies were being funneled through Germany for the war machine. That's why they attacked Dresden. Now, the war ended, like 2 months afterwards? So if that did massively affect the German military, and it ended the war, say, a few months earlier, then that could have easily saved more lives than it cost.
Hasn't Hamas been suing for peace since the Rafah offensive?
Hamas has been suing for peace.
Yeah. Israel rejected peace deals with Hamas multiple times.
Yeah, because
No.
they wouldn't return hostages.
Okay. But Israel's also killing the hostages. They're not exactly saving the hostages, are they? So so is this?
They saved multiple.
Well, hang on.
So they saved multiple hostages fairly recently. They got hostages out of that journalist's apartment. They have killed a few hostages. That's undeniable. But the idea that the military operation doesn't give them negotiating power for hostage return is fucking ridiculous. Like, are you telling me acts of terror are a legitimate political strategy?
Well, I mean, clearly they are. The response to October 7th was
so acts of terror are
decimation
legitimate political strategy. So Hamas should have murdered civilians.
I'm sorry. What is it you think? I'm kind of baffled by the question. What do you think you're asking me when you ask, is it a legitimate political strategy? You mean, is it by the rules? What's the argument? What's the question?
Well, I'm asking you, should they have done this?
Should they have done what? Who?
October 7th, massacred civilians, captured hostages.
No, Hamas should not have massacred civilians on October 7th. In fact, one of the great crimes.
But you want Israel to appease them. You want Israel to use appeasement policies.
One of the great crimes.
Yes, you did. You literally just said Israel should try to appease Hamas, give in to their demands after acts of terrorism.
I'm attempting to answer your question. One of the great crimes of the Likud party is that they fostered Hamas as opposed to other Palestinian nationalist groups, specifically so it would make them unable to grow as more viable nationalistic projects that weren't nihilistically geared towards terror. And so it would give them the pretext for things like what followed October 7th. It's been a year now. Like, here's a question. If they took the hostages to Lebanon, would that be a pretext for just demolishing Lebanon? What if they went from there to Qatar? Just demolish Qatar? Like, where does it stop exactly? Or Palestinians don't count. They're not real people like the cows you'll moralize over people eating, right?
The issue I have here is you're telling me Israel should use appeasement policies
No. See,
in response to acts of terror.
No.
And you're legitimizing acts of terror as valid political strategies.
But not legitimizing them as valid political strategies. When you're using these words, you're not using them in a way that's meaningful. When we say valid, are we talking about efficacious or are we talking about moral? If we're talking about moral, nobody.
Well, they're only efficacious if you appease them.
I mean, they're suing for peace after being decimated.
Okay, well, maybe they should return the hostages, and they wouldn't have to sue. Maybe they shouldn't listen to Sinwar. Maybe they shouldn't gun down hostages in terror tunnels and shoot them in the fucking head.
What about the millions of other people though who aren't Hamas, buddy? Like, do we just eat? Did they just eat?
Right. So just appease Hamas, appease the terrorists, and legitimize these strategies as valid political strategies.
I agree. So long as Hamas is willing to hold out, kill all the children, crush them with cinder blocks.
So has Israel killed all the children?
Has Israel killed all the children? No, Hamas did, clearly. They went door to door and they shot them so Israel wouldn't be able to save them.
Right, so when Hamas deliberately chooses not to create civilian shelters for any of the bombings, do you think Hamas might be
bad, I
using
agree.
shields?
Here's a question for you.
Hamas bad, but appease them. Hamas bad, but give in to all their demands.
No.
Do whatever they say.
Well, let me flip that back on you. At whatever cost, no matter if you kill the whole world, never, ever agree to a peace deal with Hamas.
Israel isn't destroying the entire world.
Just the Gazans' entire world, yeah. And the Lebanese.
They haven't destroyed their entire world. Most Gazan civilians are alive.
You're an idiot. You are a fucking idiot.
Oh, okay. So what's the death
look
toll?
at your
What's the population of Gaza and
look
what's
at
the
your
death
window.
toll?
The population is 2 million. How many people are displaced and homeless right now?
Okay, well, that's better than being dead, right?
Answer the question. Answer the question, Baldy. How many people are displaced in Gaza right now? How many people don't have a home in Gaza right now? Pretty much 2 million.
Okay, and do you think that might be because Hamas won't create civilian shelters and Israel has told people to evacuate because of the bombings?
We displaced 2 million people, but Hamas
okay, so why do you think people moved out of certain areas? Do you think it might have something to do with Israel telling them to leave because they're going to bomb those areas?
Yeah, and it'd be wonderful if they didn't also bomb the areas they told them to leave too afterwards.
Yeah, so Israel isn't using 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs in like these tent encampments.
I can
these
watch your dead
shelters.
eyes reading the screen. Like I know you're not here. This isn't a debate either.
By the way, you can look at my stream. I'm watching the Discord thing right now. I'm not reading anything.
I can look at. What do you mean? I can look at your screen.
You can look at my screen, and you can see I'm just looking at our Discord, the Discord panel thing right now.
You were reading stuff earlier, like you clearly are reading things.
Yeah, I was reading the IPC report on my screen, which I sent you.
Yeah, and as you said, looking at the IPC report, your eyes turn to your left, so you're looking at another monitor. I don't give a shit. The point is,
my monitor's on the right.
Is it? That's awesome. You've got a Coke can on your floor. You ever clean?
Sometimes.
Okay, your microphone's like really fucking dusty. Also, it's got like hairs all over it. It's nasty. I don't know what this is. So
you're claiming Israel is killing all the children, but then when Israel tells people to evacuate,
no, just so tens of thousands of them. Just tens of thousands.
Oh my God! Israel's displacing people, so there's no way to win. Israel tells people to evacuate so they don't kill them. Oh, you're displacing people. Then when Israel does end up killing civilians, oh, see, they're targeting civilians. You can't have it both ways.
Who joins Hamas? Who joins Hamas? Like, what kind of people join Hamas?
Let's see. I guess jihadist, terrorist extremists who want to kill Jews.
Well, that's potentially. Where do those people come from? What turns a human being, bright-eyed little baby? What turns that into a crazy Hamas terrorist?
Well, maybe you should ask the Nazis how they did their recruiting. I'm pretty sure Hamas uses a similar strategy. Oh, it's Israel's fault.
Which is no, please elaborate. Go on. You were putting your finger on something.
Well, let's see. Who would join Hamas? Maybe children who get indoctrinated into radical Islam and are brought up with the belief that Jews are evil and we need to exterminate them. Maybe those people. But that's Israel's fault, right? Is that what you want to tell me?
No, I'm kind of taken aback. Like, wow, dude. So let's play this out. It's actually it's beautifully simple. I don't even know why you're bothering to debate it. It's preloaded. So here's how it works. You take a population, okay? Corral them, brutalize them for generations. So many generations, in fact, nobody's even alive from when it started. And make it so that the smart leaders, the ones who aren't violent deadbeats, make sure those guys are killed by gangs and or shot by your own Secret Service or whatever. And then it's fantastic. See, when the people who remain, when the mobsters and the really corrupt, violent guys, when they do stuff, do the kinds of things that those people do, you have endless pretext because the entire population are just violent jihadist zombies. You may as well just say zombies.
So the Jews have been conducting a conspiracy for multiple generations to try to radicalize the Palestinian people so they can eventually wipe them out.
Obviously not. Because if that were so, there wouldn't be Jews right now being beaten up by Israeli police for protesting the massacres in Gaza. We don't care about those Jews, though, right?
Right, so there's a multi-generational conspiracy theory among Israeli Jews to radicalize these groups like Hamas. It's not like they were formed by
Hang on, hang on.
Egypt or
Just to be clear,
Iran.
slow down,
Right.
slow down, cowboy. So, just to be clear, you're saying Israeli Jews who are protesting what's happening in Gaza, they're pro-Hamas conspiracy theorists, right?
I don't know why any particular person in Israel would
I don't
be
know
protesting.
why any particular person
That you'd have to ask them, but you're suggesting there's a multi-generational conspiracy going on where Jews have deliberately radicalized Palestinians to attack Israel so that they'd one day have plausible deniability to wipe out the population.
The Likud Party. The Likud Party. You aware of the measures the Likud Party and Netanyahu have been taking to make it so they have less judicial oversight? They can. Are you even remotely aware of that? Are you aware of the protests against the current party?
I am aware Netanyahu is kind of like a Trump figure. He's tried to.
Oh, is it kind of like a Trump figure? Is Netanyahu kind of like a Trump figure?
I'm aware that Netanyahu is not a perfect politician. He does have issues with corruption. He's
not a perfect politician, is he?
He has tried to. He has tried to consolidate power, things like that. But we're talking about the war in Gaza and whether or not it's a genocide. So, not really interested in talking about whether or not Netanyahu's corrupt.
I don't think you're interested in very much. I don't think you're. I'm not even sure you're sentient. Like you're not even all here, are you? Like you're talking like a zombie.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for changing the topic an innumerable amount of time. Oh, there's a can on your floor. Oh, you're bald. Oh, there's hair there.
Yeah, it's gross.
Oh my God! You know what? I just noticed you have a double. And you have glasses. Those glasses look kind of dorky. And oh, you're like what, 40? Your hairline's kind of receded. What are those books on the back? I don't care about any of this. I don't care about this childish bullshit. So again, I don't know how you can make a strong case that Israel's committing a genocide when you compare militant civilian casualty ratios in other urban conflicts.
With astonishing ease.
Israel does not have worse militant to civilian casualty ratios than any other military. Also, your claims about starvation are not supported. There is risk. There is food insecurity issues. But again, it does seem that there is adequate amount of aid coming through to prevent mass starvation.
If 1 in 5 families is not eating for 2 days, then that's not a...
Well, again, you can take a look at the IPC report. IPC originally said there was an imminent famine. Now they're claiming there is not imminent famine. It is in crisis. Yeah, IPC phase 3 or above, crisis or worse. So aid is coming through. It has not reached famine level. There is not mass starvation. Israel's clearly not trying to cause mass starvation. If they were, I don't know why they would let any aid through whatsoever.
Why would they? Why would they turn off their water immediately at the beginning of the conflict?
I don't know. Maybe it was so that they could have negotiating power to return hostages. So, considering Israel used tactics that did not involve bombs or any kind of direct warfare. And they were able to negotiate the return of hostages without anybody dying.
Just crimes against humanity.
Oh, Israel's still bad. They were able to get hostages returned without killing anyone. Israel's still evil.
You're mentally ill and you're going to die alone. You're going to be in an unvisited grave.
I'm married.
Unvisited grave, pardon me. You're married?
Yep.
Oh, that poor woman. Goodbye.
Okay. So he had literally no argument. I'll see if Avi's online.